this case. You'll hear from them various concerns about Judge Borowski's ability, or should I say inability, to conduct a fair trial in the case of Theo Edgecomb. Many of us have lost confidence in Judge Borowski's ability to conduct such a trial. He's shown us nothing to lead us to believe that he'll be a fair and impartial judge. So today, we, the Milwaukee Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, members of the community, and activists, are demanding a new, impartial judge in this case. Our first speaker will be Liz Brown with Justice Wisconsin.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Elizabeth Brown, and I am the public speaker for Justice Wisconsin. I'm also an advocate for the family. I thank you guys for coming out. We are here because, again, the injustices and the tale of not only two cities, but two worlds, and that's for the have and the have-nots. Theodore Edgecomb, again, is fighting for his life for a second time. And it's sadly to say that already we have been met with such egregious disrespect from this system. People are speaking about the Kyle Rittenhouse case and how would self-defense stand up for a black face. And right now with the judge, David Borowski, it's clear that it does not work. We have come together so many times before, and the wording is always the same. Would we have the same rights in this America that we understand now, who have misled us to believe that justice for one is justice for all? Clearly, that's not happening. Theodore Edgecomb, again, was a black man, or is a black man, who had decided to ride his bike in the city of Milwaukee to retrieve food for him and his daughter, and then to return home to his family like anybody else. And upon him going to get food for his daughter, he was met by a Ken and a Karen, the Claremans, the wife and the husband, a well-known attorney, immigration at that, who stated that they swerved not to hit him, but clearly he was knocked off the bike onto another vehicle. And the N-word was used, stating, "Get out the street." He gets up, they get to a light, and he asks him, "Were you talking to me?" To be clear, and he has every right to ask that. If you are a resident in Milwaukee, because I myself have been on Water Street, where there's a lot of bars. I've been on Brady, and the N-word is used often. So that is very not unbelievable to somebody of color, because this is what we deal with in this city. However, the N-word was used, words were exchanged, Theodore punched Clearman through a window and fled. Clearly, there was no threat. They would want you to believe that the police done such a great job in collecting this evidence. Now, mind you, it's been a whole year, and the narrative that had been spent was Theodore Edgecomb has been called the Brady killer, convicted automatically in the papers, in the news media. That's what he was known as. Evangelina Clearman clearly played the victim in this instance. And then the family released footage a year later. This is footage that the good old boys of Milwaukee stated that they collected. They spent the narrative of the wife who stated her story that it was just a cold-blooded killing, that there was nothing that her husband did, that he went to talk. If you watch the video like I've watched the video, and I'm not an expert, but I'm not blind either, there was a pursuit violent pursuit, because when you see the tires on this truck, it's facing the sidewalk. They were trying to run him down. If you take your time to pay attention closely to what's being transcribed before you and not believe everything that you hear, but understand that everything you seeing is real. Now, this whole incident was recorded by cameras, not only the city's cameras, but also Casablanca. 2 Milwaukee police officers were sent to Casablanca. Their body footage showed that they had requested and downloaded 50 minutes of footage, beginning at 7:30, from 7:30 to 8:20. Let's be clear that the only 30-second footage that was given to the defense team was that of time of 7:45. There's no 7:30 footage. There's nothing in between. There's nothing after. So the question I would have you to ask yourselves, how did they receive the 7:45 footage that shows Mr. Edgecomb punching Mr. Clearman through a window, but there's no 7:30 footage of him being knocked off his bike, him being called the N-word? Where's the rest of the footage? Did it disappear? Now, we understand that we're coming off of 2 summers of unjust. And what happens when there's protests? That's people that haven't been heard. We've been talking, but nobody's listening. We understand that the kin and caring culture, which is Europeans feeling that they have the right to impede on black bodies. And right now we are up against this justice system that has no just, and it doesn't include us, which is those that are other than European. Milwaukee leads in mass incarceration. And this is what brings us here, because Theo, again, is fighting for his life for a second time, and this video footage should have been enough to release him. There shouldn't even been any questioning if our good old system worked correctly. David Borowski stated that the video footage that the family released, that he's seen it several times. Not only that he's seen it several times, in his words, it doesn't look like the Claremans was chasing him to me. It looked like they were speeding just like everybody else does in Milwaukee. And I ask you, if the video footage that you have seen doesn't look like he was being violently pursued, then maybe you shouldn't be a judge. That's the first thing. Secondly, every proceeding that we have been privy to, this judge is irate. His temperament is that above someone being bipolar. He has clearly stated that he and the district attorney know each other very well, to a point where they're finishing each other's sentences. He also stated clearly that this is not Kyle's Rittenhouse trial. I've seen it. I consider Judge Schroeder a good friend. The biases that's here, the authority that he feels he has, that the defense can't even finish a sentence without him cutting them off, without him being irate and reprimanding them like they're children. This judge has a history in 2018 of locking up attorneys that don't agree with him, that don't play along with his game. He has a history of knowing that evidence was tampered with, and he chose to hold the line of white supremacy and lock up those that are fighting for their clients because he don't care about justice. It's about his authority and how you're going to bow down in his presence. This judge has refused every motion of the defense. And blatantly, those that he haven't just outright refused, he has tabled until the next meeting, and then he outright refused them. Now, this previous motion that the defense came up with a private investigator, homicide investigator, detective, who have served his job and retired. And the judge outright stated he will not testify in my courtroom. We also have a 2018 incident of Mr. Claremont, whom we've had the mayor, the ex-mayor, Tom Barrett, speak highly of Mr. Claremont. 3 uncommon council members who spoke highly of Mr. Claremont. It's clear that we have a culture in the city of Milwaukee. And the justice system seems to work for those criminals that work for the justice system and not the citizens. This judge has blatantly sat there and stated that this witness, who there is a police report, and you can go and request that yourself, of an accident that represents Theodore Edgecomb exactly. The accident happened. Again, Mr. Claremont was intoxicated. He used the N-word. This witness stated that she's known him for 20 years. She has shrunk with bars that him and his wife. She knows his character. She have ran into him several times, and she has a report, a police report that states the words that he used that was vile, that David Borowski stated, no, I don't believe, you can't get me to believe that Mr. Claremont stated this. And the question that I have is, if we can't get you to believe that as a judge, do you have a right to be representing a judge in this manner? Because clearly he was your friend. There has to be some type of connection, because clearly you have not allowed this defense to do their job. And we understand that he has also allowed the prosecution to up the charges because Mr. Edgecomb refused to accept a plea. And we understand that we lead in mass incarceration of black men, women, and children because, one, we can't afford the attorneys. And on top of that, with judges like this who lock up attorneys for doing what it is that their job is to fight for their client, who can we say can go into this courtroom and stand a chance to buck this system that we understand that is clearly closely knit of white supremacy. We have several attorneys here that don't want to buck the system, because if they buck the system collapses on them. And who wants to sacrifice that? So we're asking you, everyone, because Theodore could have been you. Theodore could have been me. That we have to speak against the injustices of this system. We've been knowing about policing and their failures. We also know about the biases that we come in contact with when we're talking about this system. Being a black woman and walking into a courtroom of a white judge, a white court reporter, the deputy is standing over me is white. And then you're surrounded by whiteness and nobody is there to speak for you. And this judge won't even allow the defense to do their job correctly without being threatened to be locked up. We tell our children every day about bullying. Well, I'm sitting in this courtroom, and if you watch if you watch this judge bully the defense, bully Mr. Edgecomb, a man who had a right to fight for his life that day. And we still, to this day, are asking the same thing that Martin Luther King was asking. And this is 2022. we're not asking, we're demanding that David Borowski remove himself, recuse himself, because clearly he was good friends with Claremont. Clearly there's some connection. And clearly there's no such thing as a fair trial when you have the judge automatically with the prosecution. Again, there's witnesses. This witness that had that run-in, who it's changed her life because the judge reprimanded the defense for asking to do their job. Because this witness came up all of a sudden, the judge stated. But this whole year, they ran the narrative of the wife who didn't call 911. And now that the family released the footage and the community has came out, these organizations have came out, and we have been boots on the ground to make sure that Theo's voice is heard. And now you have individuals who's just now learning about it, and now the judge is stating that she's not a good witness, or he's not going to allow her to do what it is that she wants to do, which is tell the truth, if he don't like her story. What judge, or how many? Because, again, in America, we've seen it. He's good friends with Schroeder. He's holding the line. This is the good old boy network. He needs to be removed immediately, and we also need an investigation of David Borowski, because it was told back in 2018 that he would continue to do the same things with his temperament, being a bully in the courtroom, and nobody listened. And right now, here we are again, facing the same judge who decided to lock up a public defender that wouldn't hold the line and did what he was supposed to do, which was fight for his client. So I ask America to stand up. Because again, these failures are clear. And if you don't care, because clearly they don't, if you don't care, you or your loved one will be next. And I just want to thank everybody for coming out, for understanding what's really taking place, again, in the city of Milwaukee, in the state of Wisconsin. This is by design. This is not a mistake, that every day that we're on the news about the injustices that happen, we can no longer turn a blind eye to what the truth is. So I'm asking everybody, speak out, stand up, say something, and be willing to do the work to hold these public officials accountable. And we're also asking for Evangelina Claremont to be arrested, because clearly she has lied several times, and she has dehumanized and made Theo a monster, and she understood what she was doing, because this wouldn't even occurred had she just went home. But she took the orders of her intoxicated husband. And that is where the threat became real. So thank you guys again, and I appreciate you from coming out. And we want justice for Theodore Edgecomb, and we want Judge Borowski to be removed, and everybody pay attention. Because this is a history. He's comfortable of being who he is, and that's because we haven't done our job as a people. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those powerful words, Elizabeth. Next, we'll hear from Sean Page from the People's Revolution.
Hello, I'm Sean Page. I'm a member of the People's Revolution in Milwaukee. I found out about this last night late, so I'm going to read off my phone. I know it's a no-no, but here we go. I sat in the courtroom of the Rittenhouse trial almost every day for 2 weeks. I watched a judge expose his biased beliefs daily. Even though the Rittenhouse case is frequently referenced in Mr. Edgecomb's case, I personally do not see the comparison. Theodore was riding his bicycle home to be with his family, in the bike lane, minding his own business, when he was targeted and hunted by not one, but two drunk attackers, not victims. One drove up a sidewalk to reach Theodore. The other physically tried to assault him, used racial slurs, and also had a weapon. Theodore tried to go home that night alive. Self-defense was the only way he could do that. Unlike Rittenhouse, Theodore doesn't get to go to bars, hang out with white supremacists while awaiting trial. Theo is behind bars. Or is self-defense only for white people? Is that what this judge is already saying? The difference between these two cases is, one is a clear case of self-defense, and the other is a spoiled 17-year-old white male mass shooter with opposing political beliefs that went to a riot to play G.I. Joe and shot 4 people, killing 2. Big difference. Theodore's judge is already displaying these exact biased beliefs of his friend Schroeder. Us activists already know that the system is set up to imprison black people. We know that the system operates exactly how it was designed to, and that is to further white supremacy. We recognize biased, racist white men in power a mile away when we see it. The outbursts from this judge this week were absolutely disgusting. Imagine if it was your life on the line and your judge can't even compose himself before the trial even starts. His attitude this week was sickening. So we are here today to not ask, but demand for a new, impartial judge for Theodore Edgecomb. Thank you. Until there is justice, there will be no peace. Milwaukee will hold you accountable.
Yes.
Thank you, Sean. So we'll begin to wrap up. As you heard, right, as was stated, the people demand a fair, impartial judge in the case of Theodore Edgecomb. And Judge Borowski is not it. As he stated, right, he's friends with Judge Schroeder. That goes to show us, right, that's not just a Milwaukee problem, that's a Wisconsin problem. But it's not just a Wisconsin problem, it's a U.S. problem. It's been this way. These judges think that they hold the power, right? They make us believe that they have the power, that it comes from the top down. That justice is enacted from the top down, from the different circuits of the court coming down to the people. But we here today, what we've been doing, what we've been showing, is that justice actually comes from the bottom up. Justice comes from the people. And the people have Theo's back. The people have seen the videos. The people have heard the stories. And this is the pressure that Judge Borowski is now feeling, and we see what happens when he feels that pressure from the people. When he feels that his arm is being forced to turn towards the side of justice by the people. He doesn't like that. So he's getting a little irritated with us, but that just goes to show that he's not capable of doing his job. He's not capable of delivering justice in this case. So, again, we demand that Judge Borowski recuse himself. We demand a new, impartial judge. Because we, the people, we know what happened that night. We've seen the video. We've heard the countless tales brought to us about the Clearman's behavior. How what he did that night wasn't out of character, but it was him. A man who views people of color as inferior to him. A man who thinks he can speak down to them. Well, that night, enough was enough. People can't get away with that type of behavior anymore. Even if they're immigration attorneys, right? Who are easily labeled as heroes in our communities. So again, we're demanding that Judge Borowski recuse himself. We thank every single one of you for attending today. We'd like to thank the NAACP for letting us host this today. And if you'd like to get involved, right, in these fights against racist, injustice, against political repression, hit us up. Join the Milwaukee Alliance. Come fight for justice for Theo, because again, justice comes from the people and it works upward. It doesn't come from those judges, those lawyers, and come down to us. It is once we put the pressure that things change. And we will continue demanding that until Theo is home free with his family. Thank you so much, and have a good day. Correct. Today is Wednesday, the 12th, and it is Theo's birthday. So wish him a happy birthday, and let's get him home free.
Any questions?
Yeah, his name is A-L-A-N, that's Alan. Last name is C-H-A-V.